It's not the government, the church, or even our schools. The home is the actual foundation of all societies, and it is steadily deteriorating. Do you realize how valuable your home is? Are you willing to do the homework required to be an influencer? A home influencer. Welcome to Homework with Kim. I'm Kimona Farkison, and together we take a candid look at our homes and the work we need to do within its four walls and in our families in order to fulfill our God-given assignments. Just look around, you see it. We have some homework to do, so let's get started. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Homework with Kim, the 9th episode. I'm your host, Kim. Thank you so much for joining me here, where we take a candid look at our homes and the work we need to do within its four walls to ensure that at the end of a long, hard day, when our heads hit the pillow, we can truly declare home sweet home. I want to say again a special thanks to those of you who take the time each week to listen to the podcast. I don't take for granted this great privilege you have given me to borrow your ears for these few moments. I say thank you again to you. Thank you. And I invite you to share the podcast episodes on your social media platforms. I am truly grateful in advance for your continued support. I know last week we didn't have an episode. It was back to school for many parents. And for some parents, they have already sent the children back to school, and others are in the process still of preparing to send their children back to school or back to daycare, whichever one applies to you. And I hope from Homework with Kim that this school year will be fruitful for parents, teachers, and students alike. And today, as we return to school, and especially in light of what is happening with our children in Jamaican schools, such as what we see as an unwillingness to follow school norms. We see a lot of talk about substance abuse and really an overall lack of respect for authority. That part is certainly not new. I'd like to start off this episode by building on a quotation I saw recently, and it read, "There are too many bad parents blaming good teachers for their bad parenting." Let me say that again and a little slower. There are too many bad parents blaming good teachers for their bad parenting. What I'm not saying is that all parents are bad and all teachers are good, but I think you know what that means. Quite an interesting quotation. Please allow that quote to simmer a little while you listen to this clip.
In theory, there are only 4 styles of parenting. Authoritarian parents are controlling and demand obedience without considering the child's point of view. Permissive parents are loving but don't exert any control. There are no rules. Authoritative parents are firm but loving. They encourage independence within limits. Neglecting parents are uninvolved and often uninterested in their own child. Recently, a 5th style was proposed, but we will come back to that later. The styles range from controlling and demanding to complete freedom, and from cold and unresponsive to loving and receptive. Each authoritative, permissive, authoritarian and neglectful parents have their place. To understand what it means to grow up with parents from each end of the spectrum, we can imagine the lives of 4 children. Sarah's parents are authoritarian. They love their girl, but they believe that strict rules are important to make Sarah become well-behaved and fit into society. If Sarah cries, she's told to stop. If she talks back, she is sent to the corner for time out. If she forgets to take care of her chores around the house, she is not allowed to play with her toys. Sarah learns that suppressing her emotions and following her duties is the way to get through the day. To get the love of her parents and to avoid making them upset, she becomes obedient. However, because Sarah was never allowed to decide for herself or follow her intrinsic interests, as an adult, she doesn't know what she really wants. She begins living a life that seems perfect to her parents and society, but might leave her unhappy on the inside. Permissive parents, like those of Peter, enjoy their little boys so much that they believe they should fulfill all his wishes, give him full freedom, and never say no. Peter enjoys full control over his parents and gets whatever he wants. If he doesn't want to walk, he'll be carried. If he wants ice cream he gets. If he wants to play games, he'll be playing them all night. Peter grows up completely without borders and does whatever he thinks is right. He never coped with conflict, and he did not learn to control his emotions. The fact that he always got what he wanted made him a bad loser. As he grows older, he often acts inconsiderate and doesn't know his limits. Arthur's authoritative parents respect their child's needs, but believe that kids need freedom within certain limits. Arthur can freely play, but when he's done, he needs to help tidy up. He is allowed to eat ice cream, but only on Sundays. Screen time is limited to 30 minutes a day. There may be conflict, but the parents listen to what Arthur has to say and then lay down the rules. Arthur learns that some things are difficult, but his parents give him all the support he needs to get through it. He develops the strength to endure hardships and to continue following his interests and passions. In class, he bravely expresses his own opinions in an appropriate manner. During breaks, he can show his emotions and act freely. As an adult, he agrees to rules only after they have been discussed and he feels like he understands them. Neglectful parents are usually not present in their children's life. Nora often feels completely alone in the world. She experiences full freedom to do anything she wants to and has plenty of imagination, but she never receives any feedback or even attention. Nora realizes that it doesn't matter what she does because no one cares anyway. The lack of attention leads to a lack of trust in herself and others. She becomes insecurely attached, unable to form healthy relationships, and develops a negative image of herself. To stop feeling unworthy of love, she tries not to feel anything at all. In recent years, over-involved parents who are present in every aspect of their child's life are often referred to as the fifth style. These parents are also known as snowplows, removing obstacles out of their kids' path, or helicopter parents who hover about and micromanage every aspect of their child's life. Since they won't let their children do anything alone, the children can't learn to overcome challenges by themselves. Research infers that these children don't like to solve difficult problems, lack perseverance, and may even procrastinate in protest when something requires a lot of effort. Since most research on parenting is based on self-reports and was done in the US and Europe, it is not clear how strongly the observed effects will hold up in controlled observational experiments or in other parts of the world.
Friends, many of us thoughtful parents or guardians occasionally hesitate, if you are like me, to talk on the issue of parenting and children, especially if our own children are still young and we're still in the process of raising them. Because the truth is, we aren't yet sure how things will pan out, and I don't know how old you have to be to know your children are going to turn out a particular way. I just know I'm not that old yet. But I want us to talk about it because we have to talk about it. Because the risks our children are facing are now so great. And I know that it is popular for us to say that each generation deals with more issues than the one before it. But I do believe at this point in time, it is accurate to argue that our children are under far more cultural pressure now. Today, there is far greater media pressure. There are many, many forces at work in the world to sway our children toward doing what is evil rather than toward doing what is right. And as parents, we love our children. Psalm 127:3 rightly says it. Children are a gift from the Lord. They are a reward from Him. When they come into this world, we feel exactly that way. We say, what a good gift, what a precious gift. And we're often overwhelmed with emotion and affection for these precious and priceless gifts from God. And while love and affection is great and it is necessary, especially now when so many of the world's children are being mistreated, and it seems that our society is now finding new methods to continue abusing this most defenseless demographic. Friends, love and affection alone is simply not enough. It is not all that our children require. I firmly believe that a significant contributor to our society's problems is the fact that so many of us have long neglected to do a good job. Let me go a little further, to do an excellent job of raising our children at home. But where did we miss the mark? Simply put, as parents, we have read more non-biblical books about raising children than the best book ever written about family and the home, the Bible. Parents have taken the advice to let their child make their own decisions, do whatever they want, let them guide the way, after listening to many modern psychologists and sociologists and TV talk shows, rather than listening to God about the proper way to raise children. And an overwhelming number of parents and guardians have chosen to go in the opposite direction from which God has steered us. He has given us instructions on how to raise our children. He made us. He made them. He gave them to us. So He should know, don't you think? And I am aware that the year is 2022 and that most people nowadays don't seem to be raising their children according to the Bible. But my aim today is to convince you that this is the fundamental cause of the problems facing our country and our world. I said it before, love and affection are good, but they by themselves are not enough. And some of us falsely believe that to love our child means we are to be permissive parents. Having heard the audio, you would understand what a permissive parent is described as. Take a peek around. With the assistance of professionals, that is in air quote, who advocate a permissive approach to child rearing, we have been fostering an undisciplined generation over the last few decades. I mean, according to what we've been told, any modern and intelligent parent would consider simply spanking a child to be harsh, savage, and uncivilized. And many parents have quickly taken up this approach because it is the path of least resistance, right? I mean, we cannot afford not to fit in, even when God speaks directly to a matter. But what has He, the one who created them, said on this matter of discipline you might ask? Proverbs 13:24 says, whoever spares the rod hates their children, but the one who loves their children is careful to discipline them. Friends, we love our children, but real love, true love, genuine love for them must also include discipline. Because child abuse is so prevalent nowadays, we have been rightly sensitized to the dangers of hitting a child out of anger or using any object that could result in serious bodily harm. We are not connecting discipline to abuse here. The rod does not necessarily mean corporal infliction, although in some cases that may not only be warranted, but it may be required. But the rod stands for pain. And we also understand that a child can be disciplined through other methods. Back then, we hear so many stories, and even with my parents, the parental frown, your parent would just have to look at you and you fall in line. The denial of gratification, the restrictions of liberties, all these other things are considered disciplinary action. But what is important here when handing out punishment, parents must be sure to give reproof. Children need to understand why they got into trouble. When we combine the punishment with the reproof, it gives wisdom. Punishment alone may make them obey us, but the child will grow wiser if we educate them about the foolishness that they have done, about their folly. And the importance of pain with the punishment is that it gets their attention and their interest in listening and correcting their behavior. So friends, as wise, loving parents, we will not be afraid to bring our children to tears when necessary. I know probably I've lost some of you at this point. Oh, we're not going to continue listening. But for those of you who have remained with me, please continue as we go further. It is no fun to discipline our children. I mean, after having my own, I understand now the saying that this hurts me more than it hurts you. Because when I became a parent, I realized that discipline is harder on the parent than it is on the child. That is, if we do love them. But then I suppose God knew that we would have this struggle. And so Proverbs 23:13 says, though you may be tempted, and I just added in that part, but the verse actually starts, do not withhold discipline from a child. If you punish them with the rod, they will not die. We have responded to contrary advice that says withhold discipline from your child. If you punish him with the rod, he will die. And seemingly an overwhelming majority of parents have responded to that advice rather than the original advice given by the Creator. As a result, we have been successful in creating an entire generation of young people who have no respect for authority. On this matter, the book of common sense, that is the book of Proverbs, is clear. He who spares his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him diligently. Proverbs 13:24 connects love to discipline. And friends, how about Proverbs 22:6? Most of us know it by heart. It says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. We cannot ignore this responsibility in the same way we do not neglect to feed our children from the time they were babies. Why is it that in the beginning the parent takes food to the child? Because the child cannot do it for himself. Why do we do this? You give the bottle to your child when he is young so that you don't have to do it when he is old. Giving a bottle to a baby who is 6 or 8 months is one thing. That makes sense. That is normal. When your child is 14, 15, or 16 years old and you're still feeding him a bottle, something is seriously wrong, and others would say you need to go take that child to have him evaluated. So to train the child in the way he should go refers to starting children out in the way they should go. From the moment they are born, get them started in the right direction. The early days, the early months, the early years are the most crucial, the most critical, the key period for training them according to the Bible. We have to start our children early, train them early, and ensure that our children have what they need, because once we get them going, they'll keep going in that direction. Eventually, they won't depend on us like they do now. I mean, I'm just 4 years in and Phoebe is starting to exert her independence. Scripture underscores that whatever way we've started them is the way they are going to continue down the road long after they've left our homes and our direct control. Now, what I like about the book of Proverbs is that it teaches the difference between the fool and the wise. Remember, your child is either foolish or wise. And while children do say some pretty wise things sometimes, I mean, we all remember that TV show Kids Say the Darndest Things, leading some of us to falsely conclude that children are oh so wise. But take 5 seconds and let your child run off on their own and see whether or not they're foolish or wise. Now, please don't do that, but it only takes a parent about 5 or so seconds to recognize our children's folly. Fools despise wisdom and hate instruction. And this is what foolish children need to learn. Children who disrespect their parents and want to live independently are foolish. Instead of correcting this rebellious behavior, mommy and daddy, we end up being the ones who spend our time pacifying them. Watch what happens to the child that is not restrained but allowed to do as he or she pleases and have what he or she wants. You just turn on your local TV, whether it be TVJ, CVM, go on the Gleaner website, and you'll see what happens to a child like that. He becomes an unruly person. The parent may think he will naturally outgrow it, or that it will go away on its own as the child's capacity for reasoning develops. But this is not the case. If a child's will is not broken and if he is not reined in and molded, the eventual result is that he will bring shame to his mother, and that is according to Proverbs 29:17. I mean, the truth is, friends, it is a whole lot easier to just let the child grow like a weed than to cultivate that child and help our children to grow into healthy young adults. I mean, it is a lot of work, but that's what we're about here. And we are being warned as the supervisors of their early discipline, that if we, especially as mothers, well, parents overall, but the scripture says mothers in this particular instance, if we yield to the child, we will reap the greater share of the repercussion. And what greater sadness is there for a mother, for a parent, experience being shamed by their own child? One of the two going to have to break, either the child's rebellious behavior or the parent's heart. So you take your pick. And many Jamaican mothers band them belly pan the regular because they chose, instead of to break the child's rebellious behavior, they chose to have a broken heart instead. Of course, they didn't necessarily realize that that is what would have resulted, but God told us long time. But what happens when we discipline our children? Proverbs, again, that book of wisdom, Proverbs 29:17 teaches that corrected children will bring you satisfaction and joy. Correct your son, it says, and he will give you comfort. He will also delight your soul. Diligent, consistent, reasonable discipline is the mark of genuine love for our children. And the optimum time to start is early in life when it is easiest. It is absolutely cruel to let our children grow up without the correction he needs for healthy development. Some people say, oh, it is cruel for the child to go back to school with the same bag he had last year, or it is cruel to not be able to give your child the most expensive education or the most expensive this. No. What is cruel is to allow your children to grow up without giving them the correction they need for a healthy development. Because guess what? The world and those who don't love them will aim to break them. So we must love and mold them while they are still young. Those who truly love their children realize the importance of consistent discipline. I know I do. A child senses that parents care when they stand their ground. Don't think that you're impressing your child or your child is going to love you more when you just let them do as they please. Stand your ground and maintain established parameters. Reinforce ground rules so that they can have some stability and security. As I conclude, friends, I'm paraphrasing from an article where child psychologists discovered a very interesting truth. There is a contemporary thought that assumed that putting fences on playgrounds made children feel restricted when it was time for them to play. A consensus was reached and the fences were removed so that the children wouldn't feel confined. The opposite effect occurred. Researchers found that the children became more inhibited with their activities. The children now tended to bundle toward the middle of the playground and exhibited signs of insecurity. When the fences were replaced, the children played with greater enthusiasm and freedom. Friends, we all need boundaries. We all need boundaries, especially our children. Children need boundaries, something to define the limits of safety and security, says Hank Tate. Remember, our children are our greatest earthly treasure and should be our chief earthly care. They are the greatest earthly blessing God has placed in our hands. So we have to work with the God who created them in the disciplining of our children so that we might also end up raising them to bless others. Parents discipline the Bible's way is not easy but very necessary, and we give God thanks for the grace He gives us. Going back to the quote, bad parents blame good teachers for their bad parenting. Let us raise our children, let us discipline our children the way God has instructed us so to do, so that we can all work together to ensure parents and teachers alike. But guess what? Especially parents, take the majority of the responsibility as it was given to you, parents, not to the teachers. Yes, they play a huge role in the influence of your child. They cannot bend a tree another way when it done bend bad already. They will not respect a teacher's authority if they don't respect your authority at home. Discipline your child while he is still young, while there is time. Otherwise, they will break your heart and they will break this nation and their world. Have a great week. Thank you so much for listening. I invite you to follow the podcast on Instagram at HomeWork with Kim and to follow my personal page at Sky Mona. Thank you. We are working on a YouTube channel to have the podcast episodes uploaded, so please look out for that. If you type it in now, the channel is actually up, so you can go ahead and type it into YouTube. Please subscribe as well. There are just a couple of videos up right now, but we're working on getting the rest out as soon as possible. But you can also share that page as well. Thank you in advance for your support. Have a great week. Many blessings to you and your children as we seek to train them in the way they should go, so that when they are old, they will not depart from it.